Hey everyone, welcome to the Meridian Learning and Development Hangout with FIstful of Talent. I'm Allison and I'm with Meridian, and today we're going to be talking about how to make your learning programs binge-worthy. And I have the pleasure of being joined by Don Burke, who is the VP of People at Daxco, and Art Miro, who is a VP of Learning at several different technology companies. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Great, how are you?
Good. Do you want to take a second to kind of introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about your background and what you're binge watching right now?
Yeah, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I will go first. I'm Art Miro, and I've spent my entire career in the education field at software companies. Great little companies that got gobbled up by big companies, like Keenan Systems gobbled up by Lucent Technologies, and SuccessFactors gobbled up by a small company called SAP. And I was recently at Clarabridge as the VP of Education Services as well. And how about you, Don?
Hey guys, I am Dawn Burke and I am the VP of People for Birmingham-based technology company Daxco, and I've been a contributor for FIstful of Talent for I think since 2008 for some time. Been at Daxco for 6 years, so really my job is to make sure everybody's got a rewarding career experience, and we handle everything from recruiting to learning and development. So that's a little bit about me. So I hope I'm able to give you some trench HR tips regarding learning and development today.
Awesome. All right, so the whole idea behind this topic is to make learning so good that people just cannot stop engaging in the content and watching course after course. So Art, I'm going to kick it off with you. What is your number one thing that you think would make learning binge-worthy?
I think, well, first of all, I think that we should, I have a question for Dawn. I'm dying to know what's going to appear on the green screen behind her. I think that Dawn's screen is almost binge-worthy because I'm staring at it saying there's going to be something that's going to appear on there. Dawn, what's going on with the screen?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, one of the things I wanted to talk about what makes for binge-worthy television is great production value. So I'm glad that you noticed this. Back here on the screen, what Meridian's going to do is they're going to superimpose a dinosaur coming and like to get me, or maybe Han Solo's going to come and embrace me and give me a kiss. I mean, there's so many things that they can do. Actually, this is Daxco's colors. One of their colors is key lime, so I'm in the key lime room today.
I have already been attacked by a dinosaur. Let me get this open. Here, look, check this out. There's me running from a dinosaur in New York City. It happened.
Let me tell you, in New York, anything happens in New York.
I was terrified. Anything can happen. What are you binge watching right now, Dawn?
So I do think we should do a level set here and talk about how did we even get to this topic, and it really is the evolution of Netflix and the evolution of how we absorb information in general. Anybody who knows me knows I'm addicted to TV. It is what it is, my friends. I don't have kids, so my kids are Netflix, Hulu, and a variety of other things. So here's the two best binge-worthy shows, and I've got probably 10, but I'm going to stick to two. Number one currently is House of Cards. Hands down, one of the best dramas ever. So for you, those of you who watch House of Cards, F you in 2016, hey, you'll get what that means. Okay, Frank Underwood for president for 2016, that's what that means. And then the other one that is by far the alpha and the omega of binge-worthy television, the greatest show ever written for the small screen or big screen, is Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is so good. It's pure Shakespeare. It's completely binge-worthy on every level, and the last season will rock your world. Just grabs you in. So, Art, I'm going to throw it to you. What is your binge-worthy TV right now?
All right, I'm going to go back to tying it into binge-worthy learning because I got to say, I'm going to tell you what I'm binging. I'm going to tell you what I'm binging, but this topic, like, training in the Netflix generation, I mean, where we are, as learning leaders in the Netflix generation, I mean, if you are not binge-worthy, I mean, you are so old school, and people are so dead to you. I've spoken with several of my colleagues from other software companies who are doing some great training things, and I'll throw those examples out in a little bit. But I gotta say that you're actually, for learning, competing with things like Netflix these days. You know, like you got to be that good in order to hold your audience. So here's what I'm binging. I am binging Daredevil season 2 on Netflix. My daughter, who is 14 years old, is binge watching the TV show Supernatural, which I find campy and very teenagery, and I can't watch it. I actually call it stabby stabby kill kill because it just seems like it's not violent, but it's I don't know. Anyway,
I take it they stab and kill people a lot on the show.
Mostly like demons and stuff that then just disappear, but there are a lot of stabby kill kill. Okay. But I will say that my daughter has gotten into I Love Lucy because Amazon, if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you can get the best of season 1 and season 2. And if you have not seen Lucy on working at the chocolate factory, shoving chocolates in her mouth so fast, you have not laughed in your life yet. You should
classic. Now, one thing I think would be a really good segue into that is when I was thinking about this topic, my background, my first degree was actually in theater, so that's one of the reasons I'm addicted to TV. You know, I'm living vicariously through these actors. That being said, I really had to think about what does make television binge-worthy, and how does that translate into learning and development programs? Because, Art, you're right, and I don't think it's just the millennial generation that has now consuming information in a different way. Netflix is changing how all generations, from Generation X baby, to my mother's generation, yes, X power baby. It's not just a millennial thing. Millennials have ushered in a new way of training. So here are the things that make television binge-worthy, and I think, Art, you might be able to then talk about learning and development. First of all, it has to be a great script. So for learning and development, the content has to be good. The script actually has to be better than the presenters. So the second thing, though, you do have to have is great actors. So in L&D world, that means you have to have good, credible facilitators, but they're only as good as their content. That's my opinion. You have to have a hook, some kind of hook that grabs you in. I think you have to have great production value, which what I mean by that is, for learning and development, is you can't have a lot of noise that's distracting from the point. And then the last thing is you have to make it easy to stay engaged, and Netflix does that brilliantly. And so I think those all have correlations to training and development. So I know one of the things I'd love to know, and I'm sorry, Allison, I'm stomping on your gig here, but talk a little bit, you talked a little bit, Art, about length of sessions. Like, talk about what the length should be regarding training and development in the modern workforce.
Right. Well, if there are a bunch of learning leaders who are listening to this, they're all going to say the length of the session is determined by the outcomes that you want, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish with people, the length has to be right for whatever the topic is, but not a second longer. But what I'm finding in the field is that more and more of my peers and teams that I'm working with are trying to segment more tightly the knowledge nuggets, if you will. I mean, we actually have some funny names for these nuggets, but they're trying to segment.
You guys know it's one.
We call them booger nuggets of knowledge. I'm sorry, that's just what we call them. Yeah, you asked.
I like transparency in conversations.
You asked. Anyway, you know, the 5-minute segment, the 2-minute segment, the 5-minute segment, and the 15-minute segment are being used more and more for different purposes that are out there. So just to give you some examples, you know, at Clarebridge, the former head of sales operations, a guy named Lee Wright, was using some software that I'm actually going to call out for one particular function that it has that's really cool. It's called the Lego, but he was creating these 5-minute videos, and he was tying them to actual hooks, you know, either in the marketplace or in Netflix. So he was doing some Breaking Bad segments that he was, you know, either playing a character, you know, or whatever, but he was doing these short segments that were really about, you know, sales operations for salespeople. But he created almost a YouTube channel for himself. But what was really cool, the real collective hook, was that this Lego software, when you're recording things and playing it back, allowed the salespeople to actually type in comments as the video is playing. So you know how YouTube, you can have comments below. Well, with this software, you can actually place comments right on the screen that appear right under the person. Obviously, it's not a great use for something in the public because you never know what they would type on the screen. But for salespeople, they were offering things like, yeah, that worked great at XYZ company, or right on, you know, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes they would type in, wow, that's a terrible impersonation of, Breaking Bad.
Was this in a live format, or this was recorded?
No, it's all recorded and it's all posted. And what made it binge-worthy is the fact that, you know, they had a series, and the series might be on something as, potentially lame as how to enter new orders into Salesforce. But what was cool about it was you had a theme, you had short segments with specific topics that they were taking on, and then you had the ability to actually interact with one another by typing in comments that appear right on the screen at different segments. You could actually pause, type in the comment, and then move on. It was really great.
That's great. That's great. A couple of things that come to mind here. In my company, we do use some different recorded mediums or virtual mediums to train, but still a lot of our training is live. All right, so
Sure.
The one thing I had to think about, and again, we're a smaller company, so it's a lot easier to get people together for a live training. That will change over time as we grow. But still, the philosophy of bite-sized nuggets, of not overcomplicating or over-engineering the trainings, are still really, really relevant. When I first came to Daxco, I really did think, you know, we have to learn at something, people need to be away from their desks in the classroom for 2 days.
Sure. Yeah.
Honestly, no, 3 hours. And let me tell you, it doesn't. Now you might do several sessions, but I think again the modern workforce is so crowded, is so particularly in the tech industry, that frankly after a certain amount of time, not only is the capacity for ingesting the information is just as far as fatigue concerned go down, but it also isn't the preferred method. And if it's not preferred, then it's not effective. So we do lots of bite-sized trainings, not only for onboarding, but also for some of our developmental trainings as well. But it really depends on your culture, and like you said, it does depend on what the outcomes need to be.
That's right. Right. I have an ongoing debate with another learning leader. His name is Sean Champion. He works for a software company called Trizetto, and he's a brilliant thought leader. And please, if you're watching this, Sean, I might not have meant it. But anyway, he and I have an ongoing debate about the use of boot camp at the beginning of, your engagement. And both of us have always had boot camps as kind of the kickoff for technical software training for the people who need kind of the most, 0 to 80% boost to get productivity. And that boot camp, on software can last anywhere from a week to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And may really be necessary. But what Sean really convinced me of is he is now creating, these little YouTube nuggets of here's how to do one particular thing, because his audience are essentially like customer service reps in the insurance industry, and they all the time need to do, XYZ particular thing. How do I issue a refund on this particular healthcare item? Sure. And so if they can actually call up, just like a YouTube search, if they can call up something from their LMS that says, how do I, just do this particular refund, get it right then while they're doing it live, and it only takes 2 minutes, then they can actually, learn all the codes, anything that gets updated, they have all the latest and greatest. And he really convinced me that you don't have to teach people to build the entire car up front. Yes. You can teach them just how to put the tires on the car, and other people can be doing other parts of the assembly line. It really does work.
And I'll tell you, one of the things, too, that's interesting is our company does teach everybody the 5 dysfunctions of a team, Patrick Lencioni, kind of a classic, a standard, but still really good material. And even Lencioni, who, again, these are kind of your A players, multi-mass media training and developments, he even is taking parts of his books and doing 2-minute segments on YouTube to explain something that he might spend 3 chapters on in a book, but he breaks it down into a bite-sized 2-minute nugget that, frankly, I even have trouble getting through the 2 minutes. So I think, but it's been very, very effective. So I definitely think that's a trend across party
Yeah,
line.
it's like learning math through Khan Academy.
Yeah.
There's another learning leader who actually is great. I'm gonna further diss my friend Sean, who I've actually performed his wedding. So okay, we're pretty good friends. But my friend Sarah Green Taves, who's a great thought leader at Anaplan Software, has another take on this, which is she actually realized, I think, that the subject matter experts that you have in your company that are scattered throughout your company they're not the training leaders at all, but they are the people who have all the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so what her plan was corner all of these people, because you know that they're getting sidetracked by 100 requests individually for whatever their knowledge is. And so she actually cornered, I guess they're going to do up to like 45 to 15-minute topics where they trap their experts and force them to tell them their tips and tricks. And the whole idea behind sharing knowledge that way just allows things to be so extensible. You can actually spread knowledge so much more easily if you get it down and get it recorded, then stay after these guys because they have the knowledge. And if you, as the learning leader, can make them interesting by explaining to them how to get this down into a 5-minute, into a 5-minute segment that actually kind of moves the needle a little bit.
So Allison, I know we just have a few more minutes. What else you got for us?
Yeah, no, I think you guys have covered a lot of really great stuff when it comes to content and the length of sessions and things like that. But I did have a question about, do you have any suggestions? You've talked and touched on it a little bit with hooks.
Yeah.
Are there any that kind of jump off the page to you that you're like, this could be a really quick win for someone that's watching, or any ideas around interactivity? Either of those.
The one thing that so gamification has been big recently in terms of interactivity, badging and activities around games within training. And I can't go into all of that on this segment. We could have another conversation specifically about it. But the one thing that I'll say around hooks is that training has gotten a lot more real in the last couple of years. And by that I mean, gone are these faceless voices that you hear in the background on a WBT saying, sexual harassment training is very important in today's work world. You have a real person who's standing up and telling you really how it is and communicating things in a much more natural way. That really hooks people in. So if you can be natural and still be kind of efficient, keep it short, I think that's a great hook.
I agree with that, Art, for sure. I think that cultural hooks, sometimes the way you motivate people to come to a training is it needs to be something that is probably going to impact business significantly, or maybe there's been an event that's happened that everybody needs to prepare for. I think that one tool that I would recommend to folks to help with interactivity at the beginning is a tool called Poll Everywhere. It is a tool that allows for you to present perhaps data, a poll of some sort live, and all of the attendees right there through their smartphones are able to put their answers on the screen, and it tabulates it in real time. So it's almost like you would do on perhaps a different Hangout or GoToMeeting or a webinar where people are able to interact. So you can do that in a live training setting using a tool called Poll Everywhere.
Awesome.
One other final hook, beer. I always promote beer in every training session. So beer.
I would go to that training session.
You would go to that training session.
We actually end our training sessions with happy hours. For real. So there is an incentive to stay awake throughout the entire program.
Beer.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the Hangout this week, and thanks everyone for tuning in and watching. I will see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye. Connect to us on LinkedIn. Bye.
Bye.